Welcome to episode 5. We talked last time about how important psychoed is, so here is our first intervention. We are here to talk about what are the components of anxiety, what are the pieces, how do they all work together. So this is tips 11, 12, and 13.
Welcome back to Raising Resilience, 25 tips for parenting your child with anxiety or OCD. I'm Dr. Josh Spitalnick, practice owner of Anxiety Specialists of Atlanta. I'm a licensed psychologist, board certified in cognitive behavioral therapy, and I have with me my co-author and colleague, Marti Munford, licensed professional counselor. Tip 11 is maybe the most important, we say that a lot here, beginning piece of knowing what the heck is going on with your kid. We're with the assumption that you're here because you're a parent or a caregiver, a child with anxiety or OCD. And when you read tip 11, it talks about 3 columns or 3 bits of information. And we use certain letters in our practice. Most people use certain letters. We typically use letters T's, O's, and C's when we're talking about obsessive compulsive disorder. And we talk about T's, F's, and SB's, hard to say, when we're talking about pretty much every other anxiety disorder. What's important is you know there's 3 columns. Column 1 about T's is the triggers. What are the people, places, things, thoughts, feelings, or situations that make your person or you feel or think with anxiety?
Then we talk about the O. I like to just call that the what. What is the thing? And this is where I think people think therapy is going to focus a lot of time on.
What they come in for.
Yeah, that's what they come in.
Fix my column 2.
Let's convince my kid that their bed is safe, right? But it's not even about this. It's really not about the what. And I tell parents, because of that idea that I don't want you playing whack-a-mole your whole life or their whole life, it's really important that we don't get too bogged down in the what, right? So that brings us to our last column. And that is where really change happens, because that is the fuel that makes anxiety go up or down. And so compulsions, safety behaviors, rituals, that is anything that we do or don't do that is only about making us feel calm, right? So if we think back to scary, safe, scary, dangerous, typically compulsions don't actually make us any safer. They just make us feel calmer.
But if the bad thing doesn't happen and you've done compulsions or safety behaviors, what does the person's brain think?
Woohoo!
Yep.
So glad I did that. That
It
was
worked.
Such a good decision.
Great solution. And
Mom should sleep in my bed every night.
And that's why someone didn't break in the house. The reality is most of the safety behaviors or avoidance or rituals or compulsions, all these are column 3 actions. Sometimes they're of mind, sometimes they're of visible body actions. They're a false sense of security.
Yeah.
And as you said, they actually reinforce or make the problem worse.
And you might be thinking, okay, well, that's not my kid. We're not dealing with OCD here. And so I always specify for families, it doesn't matter whether we're even talking about an anxiety disorder or we're just talking about everyday fear, right? These components are essential for us to know. So sometimes we might call the O column a worry or a fear. Sometimes we might call the C column a safety behavior, a ritual, because it's all these pieces make the cycle that keeps us living in fear. And sometimes that's a good thing, right? So knowing how all of these components are working together is really, really crucial.
So let's get to tip number 12. Tip number 12 is really talking about column 3 exclusively. We're talking about rituals, compulsions, or safety behaviors, avoidance, and all the ways in which we think we're managing that column 2 stuff, those worries or obsessions, Marti.
I like to ask people the question, would you be doing this if you weren't anxious, right? That's really what it comes down to when you're trying to figure out would I, wouldn't I? And I think that gets a little tough when you're talking about things that are otherwise good things, right?
Yeah.
Hand washing, apologizing, telling your parent you love them, right? But even good things can be hijacked by OCD or anxiety.
So that column 3 is an important piece for us. As we talked about in a previous episode, psychoeducation and knowledge is power. Enumerating those, learning those about your kid is critical. So if you get to see a therapist, obviously it's a little bit easier, but there are plenty of things that you can look up online to find out for your child if they have separation anxiety, social anxiety, a certain phobia of like dogs and needles, or if they have OCD. What are the things that most people are often doing in response to those, and starting to create that list. And for us, that list is the first step of targeted intervention, especially for kids, trying to start to teach them what it is that they're doing that we might want to shift in the family or in the home.
Sure.
Which shifts us to number 13, evil number 13, which is that a lot of people think when I obsess all day long, I worry all day long, we call those ruminations, that I am doing column 2 all day long. And when Marty and I hear that, we go, oh, this is gonna be a tough one. You're actually not obsessing all day long. You're not worrying all day long. You might have lots of worries. You might have lots of obsessions. You might have lots of fear, but you're actually probably mentally engaging with that or worrying about worrying. And that's what number 13 is about. That mental rituals, which is a weird concept we're gonna talk about now, they're not obsessions. They are category 3, column 3, active ways of mind to try and solve, analyze, calculate, figure out, question, wonder, plan for, anticipate, ruminate on your fear.
Mm-hmm. And this can be really tough, right? Because what that means, if you think about the fact that a trigger could be something happening internally, the worry is happening internally, and the compulsion can also be happening internally, it means as parents, sometimes on the outside, things look really mismatched.
So when all those things are happening on the inside, Marty, I know we're talking about helping you as a parent identify and understand your child's T's, O's, and C's. You and your child may not be able to enumerate these or list them because the kid may not know, but you need to be paying attention to what I like to talk about is the W questions. They either start with W or end with W. Who, what, where, when, why, how, ends in W, or what if. When you start hearing a litany of those from your anxious kid, understand that those sound like worries. What time are you coming back? Where are you guys going? Who's going with you? What's for dinner? Who's picking me up? When are we leaving? They feel like the child's worrying, but that's their way of shaping the world to meet their needs. For us, those are mental and or verbal behavioral rituals. If they're doing it up here, we call them mental rituals. If they're doing it to you, whether it's about confession or reassurance, it's a behavioral verbal ritual. We can see it, but they still operate in the same mechanism. They're their intellectualized way to try and figure out, solve, and make everything better. And when they do them so many times, they don't make things better.
Yeah. What is most important is that you as the parent know that you might not see the entire iceberg, right? There's a chance that there's stuff happening that you don't see. But the more you guys as a family can take that vocabulary, apply it, and the better your kid gets and you get as a parent of being able to dissect all those different components, the better you're going to be at treating anxiety.
The reason tips 11, 12, and 13 are so critical is because it starts actually laying the foundation for targets of treatment. Education's the first intervention, knowing your symptoms, which is kind of education, is the second intervention. Fixing, addressing, modifying those symptoms is really the next level of intervention. And for us, a technique called ritual prevention or response prevention is something that we teach all ages and how to deal with compulsions, avoidance, rituals, responses, safety behaviors. And if you can start reducing those in your life and replace them with more functional, healthier behaviors, not just get rid of them, but swap them out with something more valuable, you've cracked the code of beating and treating anxiety or OCD.
So this episode, it's all about vocabulary. If you know the parts, your kid will. And then you know that you guys are on the same team, right? So remember your psycho-ed, hold on to that language, and we're gonna keep targeting places where your kid is feeling anxious and hopefully help them feel better. And knowing that they can deal with it, right? I think that's so important. That's our goal, right? Not for things to never be scary, but to know what to do when they are.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode. This is getting into the weeds and the details of you and your family's symptoms of OCD or anxiety. Learn them, master them, modify them. Join us in the next episode as we continue on our journey of teaching parents how to raise more resilient children.
If you like this episode, feel free to like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with everything else that we put out on our channel. Yeah, and hopefully we can, I think this is so much content too, we can like go back and forth like.
So the reason steps 11, 12, and 13 are so critical, tips are,
and if you're thinking about, hold on, where was I going with that? Rituals,
I talked about stuff
safety.
up here, everything gets better and everything doesn't get better.
But it's okay to not be okay, Josh.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
So